The heat was suffocating. Clara could barely breathe through the gag tied around her mouth. Her wrists were raw and bleeding, arms wrenched behind her back. Every bump of the wagon sent pain shooting through her shoulders. The canvas roof trapped the noon sun, turning the air thick and stifling. Sweat soaked her dress, clung to her skin, mixed with dirt, blood, and fear. Beside her, Ruth slumped against the wooden wall. Her lips were split, her eyes dull, her chest rising in weak, shallow breaths. The three men riding ahead called back to them now and then. One laughed, saying they'd reach the border by nightfall. Another bragged about what a fine price fresh stock like them would bring. Clara wanted to scream, to run. But all she could do was sit there, wrists bound, ankles tied, waiting. When the heat peaked, they stopped under a cluster of trees. The youngest of the men, maybe 30, jumped down and walked to the back of the wagon. His boots crunched through dry grass as he climbed up and grabbed Ruth by the chin. "She's fading," he said. "We should make sure she's worth the trouble before we cross." His hand reached for her dress. Clara's heart pounded. Her throat was sand-dry, but she forced the words out past the gag. "Wait, take it off." The man froze, startled. Her voice trembled, but she met his eyes. "You don't have to hurt us. We'll cooperate. Just, let us go after." Silence hung in the air. Then he laughed. "You think I want it? You're not for me. You're for the buyer." He jumped down and walked away, still laughing as he rejoined the others. That night, while the men drank whiskey and roasted stolen meat, Clara didn't sleep. Neither did Ruth. Clara twisted her wrist, working the dull wire shard she'd hidden in her sleeve. It was barely sharp enough to fray cloth, but it was all she had. The rope bit deeper into her skin. Blood trickled down her arms. Her breath stayed quiet. Any noise could be the last. Hours crawled by. The men argued, then fell into drunken snores. Finally, one wrist came free. Clara worked fast, untying the rest before cutting through Ruth's ropes with shaking fingers. By the time they were both free, the fire had burned low. Clara grabbed Ruth's hand, and they slipped into the dark. The brush tore at their legs, thorns shredded what was left of their dresses, but they didn't stop. Barefoot, bleeding, terrified they ran. Branches whipped their faces, leaves rustled underfoot. Every sound felt like a gun being cocked. They didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. By dawn, they had crossed into open plains. The trees thinned into brittle grass and hard, cracked dirt. Their lungs burned. Their feet were torn and bleeding. They collapsed beside a fallen log, gasping. The sun climbed higher. Insects buzzed. The air smelled of dust and heat. Clara lifted her head. A figure moved near the tree line, a tall man, weathered, a rope slung over one shoulder, a wide hat shadowing his face. He carried a metal bucket that caught the light. Water. He stopped when he saw them. No smile. No words. Just a long, unreadable stare. Was he a rancher? A traveler? Or another monster wearing a calm face? They'd escaped one hell, had they just run into another? He stood there a long moment, hand resting on the bucket handle, the other near his belt. His face was hidden in shadow, but his stance said everything. He wasn't afraid. And somehow, that scared Clara even more. Ruth clutched Clara's arm. Her lips parted like she wanted to speak, but nothing came. Then the man stepped forward, slow, steady, boots crunching dry grass. He stopped 10 feet away. "You girls hurt." His voice was low, gravelly, but not unkind. Clara pushed herself up on shaking arms. "We just need water." Her throat was raw, the words cracked like dry leaves. He nodded. "Got some in the bucket. Not cold, but it'll do." He crouched, set the bucket between them. Ruth reached first, hands trembling. One sip and she burst into tears. The man didn't stare. He just breathed slow, then stood. "You running from someone?" Clara said nothing. Ruth answered. 3 men. They said there was work. Then they tied us up." The man's jaw tightened. He looked toward the woods, then back at them. "You girls alone now?" "I think so." That's when the sound came, hoofbeats pounding through the trees. A rider burst from the brush, dust swirling around him. His shirt was open, face flushed from rage or drink. He spotted the girls, then fixed his gaze on the man with the bucket. "You got something of mine?" The stranger didn't flinch. "Don't reckon I do." The rider swung down, yanking a revolver from his belt. "Back off. Those two belong to me." The words hit like a slap. Ruth gasped. Clara reached for a rock. The cowboy moved first. One smooth motion, hand to his hip, gun drawn, shot fired. The crack echoed across the plain. The rider screamed, dropped his gun, blood soaking his shoulder. The cowboy walked up slow. "No one owns anybody out here." He emptied the rider's gun and tossed it aside. "Tell your friends if they come for these girls, they answer to me." The man didn't argue. He scrambled back to his horse and rode off, clutching his wound. The cowboy turned to the girls. His voice softened. "Name's Samuel Hart. My ranch isn't far. You can rest there. Decide your next move in daylight." They hesitated, but followed. He'd just saved their lives. Samuel's ranch sat on a dusty ridge, nothing grand, just a wooden house, a windmill creaking in the breeze, and miles of empty land. To Clara and Ruth, it looked like heaven. He led them inside. The air smelled of leather, sun, and dry wood. "No one's been here but me for a while," he said, setting down his rifle. "Make yourselves at home, whatever that means right now." He handed them 2 soft cotton shirts from a peg near the door. "They'll be big on you, but they're clean." Clara held hers like gold. Ruth disappeared into the next room to change. When they came back, drowning in fabric, they smiled just a little. Samuel poured water into a tin cup and passed it to them. Then he sat at the table, arms crossed. "You girls got names?" "Clara," she said hoarsely. "This is Ruth." "Samuel Hart," he nodded. "Most folks just called me Hart. Not that many come by anymore." He didn't pry. Didn't ask what happened. Just sliced dried meat and said, "You're safe here. Until you figure out what comes next." That night, they sat on the porch watching the sun sink behind the hills. Ruth tucked her legs under herself. Clara hugged the shirt tight around her. Samuel lit a cigarette, silent for a long while. "Used to have a wife," he said finally. "She didn't take to ranch life. Said the quiet was too loud." Clara glanced at him. "She left." He shook his head. "Got sick. Took the baby with her. 10 years now." No one spoke after that, just the sound of crickets. Inside, he laid out blankets in the spare room. "Door locks from the inside," he said, setting down a wooden wedge. "If it helps you sleep." Clara wanted to thank him, but the words wouldn't come. She just nodded. Later, Samuel sat on the porch, eyes on the stars. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel so empty. But peace never lasts long. 3 shadows were riding through the dark, one with a bandaged shoulder. By sunrise, Samuel was on the porch, coffee in hand, shotgun by his side. Something in his gut felt wrong. Out in the distance, 3 riders approached. The man he'd shot rode stiff, favoring his left arm. Samuel stood. "Girls," he called inside, "time to get up." They didn't ask questions. Minutes later, they were beside him. He handed them small revolvers. "Ever fired one?" Ruth shook her head. Clara nodded slightly. "Good. Stay behind the rail. Don't shoot unless I do." The riders came slow, full of swagger. The injured one spat in the dust. "You got something of ours." Samuel's eyes narrowed. "Funny. That's what the last one said." The tallest rider dismounted. "We don't want trouble. Just want what's ours. Hand over the girls and we'll ride off quiet." Samuel stepped forward, hand easy near his belt. "You boys are outnumbered and outmatched." The injured man drew first. Samuel ducked and fired twice. One shot clipped the rider's leg. The others dove for cover. Chaos. Gunfire. Dust. Screams. When it cleared, one man lay groaning in the dirt. The rest raised their hands. Samuel stared them down. "You're lucky I'm not the hanging kind." He went inside, came back with a pouch, and tossed it on the ground. "Gold. More than they're worth. Take it, and get off my land. They did, limping, humiliated, but alive. Clara stood in the doorway, trembling. You paid them. Samuel nodded. Don't like blood on my porch. This way, it's done. After that, the ranch felt different. Quieter, but not empty. Samuel worked like nothing happened. Fixed fences, watered horses. But something had shifted the way he looked at them, the way they looked at him. Ruth rose early to feed the chickens. Clara swept the porch each morning without being asked. They weren't guests anymore. They belonged there. One golden evening, the three of them sat shelling peas on the porch. Ruth said softly, "You ever think we were meant to find this place?" Samuel smiled faintly. "Don't know about meant to. But I'm glad you did." Clara looked up at the fading sky. "I lost everything, my home, my name, my future. But here, with you two, maybe I've got a chance again." Samuel nodded. "Maybe we all do." It wasn't a love story, not in the usual sense. It was messier, born from pain, loss, and second chances. Three broken people choosing to stay. And that's the thing about the frontier, it doesn't care who you used to be, only who you decide to become. So maybe the question isn't how their story ended. Maybe it's this. If you had to start from nothing, would you fight for your own happy ending? Would you let love find you in the unlikeliest place? And if it did, would you be brave enough to keep it? If this story stirred something in you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of grit, love, and the human spirit. Now pour yourself another cup of tea and tell me, if you were on that porch with Samuel, what would you have done differently?